Hey guys, welcome back to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brewer. I'm joined by my co-host, Elvin Lantigua, and today we have the honor of having Scott Leeper, the owner of Alpha Lima Charlie, and the page admin of Vets Mentoring Vets. Scott, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your military career, please.
So I joined the Marine Corps in 2001. Matter of fact, we're just a couple days removed from uh, 19 years exactly to the day I graduated from Marine Corps boot camp. I spent time as a reservist. When I was a reservist, I deployed to Iraq twice. First time in 2003, the second time in 2006 to 2007, I was in Al Taqaddum Air Base. First time was 7th ESB, second was 9th ESB. And then after my second deployment, I went active duty, went out to Okinawa, Japan on a company tour. And I was with Combat Assault Battalion out there. Lat moved from heavy equipment operator to CID. And then went to base in Okinawa, then PCS to, Camp Lejeune, and in 2014 I got out, which is part of the story, which we'll get into shortly. So that's my career.
And just to be clear, you started out in the reserves, correct?
I did. Yep.
Okay. And then you got off active duty in 2014. Can you tell us a little about your story as you transitioned? Scott has a really interesting story that is inspiring and very unique. He got out under some unique circumstances, and that has been a pivotal moment in his life that has really ultimately propelled him through some hard times, but it also propelled him to the other side and doing some really amazing things. So if you can go ahead and elaborate on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So in 2012, when I was stationed in Lejeune, I had to come home. I took my dad off life support. I watched him take his last breath because of his alcohol addiction, and that was really the catalyst moment in my life that everything changed. Now, it didn't change automatically. 3 months after his death, my son was born, and at the same time, I was also working as a CID agent on Camp Lejeune. And Camp Lejeune was one of the busiest, if not the busiest, CID office in the entire Marine Corps. So as soon as he had died and had his memorial service, went right back to work, and then 3 months later, my son was born. And then within his first year of life, I started having an affair with my wife because I wasn't coping with my dad's death very well. I was compartmentalizing, I was burying it, and I was pushing my wife away at the same time. I was pushing away the people that I worked with, and just started seeing a level of toxicity in myself that I'd never seen before. Very uncharacteristic decisions, and my wife and I worked things back out. We're actually still together, and doing a lot better now than we ever were, even before the affair happened. But the command found out about the affair, and I got kicked out with an other than honorable discharge through an administrative separation proceedings, and started over. I mean, with an other than honorable discharge, I'd never be a cop again. I'd never have a badge again. If I had the honorable, I had a top secret at the time. I possibly could have walked into any federal agency. I could have walked into any police department potentially, and gotten a job fairly quickly. But that just wasn't the case. And I was in my early 30s too. So starting over completely, like I just graduated high school, and there are certain opportunities that now are not presenting themselves at that point in time. So that's kind of the analogy I use with high school graduation, if you will. And so I had to start over, and I had a skill set now that I couldn't use, or so I thought at the time. And when I got out, I knew I wanted to help people. Even though I was still very much in my own head, I was still very much living a level of toxicity that I didn't want to, but I wanted to help people. So the first job I had, I worked in the staffing agency. I was a staffing agent helping people find jobs. And within that first year of working there, I ended up getting fired. And the second job I had, I worked for the Salvation Army, running a bunch of thrift stores in my area here in northern Indiana. And although thrift retail was not my gig, not something that I enjoyed, what I did enjoy was I spoke to men in a rehab facility that those stores funded here in South Bend, Indiana. About 4 months into that job, they shut that rehab facility down and sent everything to Gary, Indiana, which is about an hour and a half west. So now I'm stuck running a bunch of stores. again, just I didn't enjoy it. There were some disagreements between myself and the management, so I felt forced to resign. Saw the writing on the wall, and I left that job. Went and worked for a garage door company, working their office. And once again, a year after that, I had gotten fired from that job as well. That particular job, though, was where things started to really take a turn for me for the better. In that year that I worked for the garage door company, I started bodybuilding and started, some of the amateur shows, and I did 2 that year. So when I got fired, I thought that, I was going to follow my passion, which was fitness at the time. Still is. I still love my fitness journey. And so I went and became a personal trainer and started working at a local gym. And the job, the sessions there, they went from training sessions to coaching sessions, like life coaching sessions. Some of these sessions were now to the point where we weren't even doing anything with the weights. We were simply having a life coaching session in the middle of the floor, just talking, and in all actuality, that was getting people a whole lot more results than lifting any weight, because we were working a muscle that I don't want to say nobody, that many people either refuse to work or don't know how to work. And that's your mind, or your heart muscle rather. And not the cardiovascular sense. So then I started looking at my coaching certifications, and in 2017, I received my coaching certifications, health and life coaching, and I became a coach. When I started coaching people, I honestly, the funny thing is I decided I was going to be the next Tony Robbins, and I was going to help anybody with anything. You just come to me with your problems and I'm going to fix you, kind of thing. That doesn't work. That doesn't happen.
I fell down that path when I went into the fitness industry myself. It was like, I was going to change the fitness industry. My views and thoughts were going to be revolutionary, and that was going to be the way it was. But I do want to back up just briefly to just to touch on the idea of transitioning in the way in which you did. You didn't have any time, right? I mean, this was a really abrupt process, because I know with these ad set boards, like they come down and it's like, boom, you get your 10-day letter, you're gone in 10 days, right? What can you touch on your mindset when you were going through that, and how you sort of, I guess, tried or attempted to navigate that as best you could?
Honestly, the mindset that I had then, I see my old mindset in a lot of vets nowadays, and that's very, very toxic. This is happening to me. Life sucks. These people suck. It's not my fault. It's their fault.
The Marine Corps screwed me. Yeah.
The Marine Corps.
Weenie.
Right. They're throwing me out like a piece of garbage. How could they possibly do this to me? And so constantly, at the time I was constantly pointing the finger outward. I was never looking, when you're pointing the finger outward, I was never flipping that upside down and seeing these 3 fingers pointing back at me. I got myself in that situation, and I wasn't looking at that as such. So my mindset then was extremely negative. Everybody's stupid. Everything is stupid. This shouldn't be happening to me. Why is this happening to me? I never viewed it as happening for me.
And that's been sort of the pivotal mindset shift that you've operated off of, which has launched you into Alpha Lima Charlie, correct? That's your business?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, now, the mindset's very much, like let's go all the way back to the pivotal moment when my dad died. I used to view that as a curse. My dad's death is a gift. And that's in a lot of times, like if you would have told me back the day that my dad died that, oh, your dad's death is a gift, I probably would have throat punched you. I mean, in actuality, right? I probably would have throat punched you. But the reality is his death is absolutely a gift for multiple reasons. Because one, if that didn't happen the way that happened, we wouldn't be on this call right now. If that didn't happen the way it happened, I would not have learned what drive is, what ambition is. I wouldn't have learned self-care, self-trust, self-respect, self-love. My dad hated himself. I remember going to his house. We didn't talk for almost the entire time I was stationed in Okinawa. About 2.5 years we didn't talk. And it was over $250, something just stupid. And finally we made amends, and I went over to his house, and it was this little shack apartment he lived in. And he was actually supposed to meet me in my sister's house. This was like one of the first times we started talking, and he didn't show up. And he just lived just down the street. So I walked down there. It was like November, right around Thanksgiving time, something like that. And so walked down to his house, knocked on his door, and when he answered, he was already drunk and he was swaying. You could tell he was just shit-faced. And I walked in. I didn't say anything. I kind of walked in and just after what I saw, and what I saw was his apartment looked like a recycling plant. I mean, the empty containers that were literally stockpiled in his kitchen, as tall as his kitchen counter. No bullshit.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I got pissed, and I turned around, and this is before I understood, like, you know, the mentality of addiction. And I turned around and I said, Dad, what the hell are you doing? And he starts bawling like my 8-year-old son. And he says, look at me. I'm fat. I'm nasty. Nobody loves me. Nobody wants me. This is my escape. And he's saying this, his tears are just streaming. And at the time, I had no idea what to do with that. And I think I said something. I don't remember what I said, but I remember that part of the conversation very vividly. And it's that conversation that I think about frequently, and his death and how it happened, and why he drank himself to death, that taught me self-love, self-care, self-determination, self-drive, ambition, fulfillment. But I didn't think of any of those things when I was in my own head, making those uncharacteristic decisions. It wasn't until, you know, these past several years now, I'd say probably the past 4 years, because I really started that journey prior to becoming a coach. You know, so leading up to Alpha Lima Charlie, you know, that's the whole narrative now. That's my whole message, is life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Your challenge is your gift. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Similar stuff, you know, father related as well over here. But you know, similar situations, I guess. But like for me, what I took from it was because of situations like that. It's funny how people like take it. It's like parallel, but almost the same. But basically, the way I took it was anti-pity. Like I'm so anti-pity because of what I've seen, and a lot of it is the person with looking for it's them. It's things happen to me, and so you know I think it is a blessing when you're able to see that, and then you know kind of fix that on yourself to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And I do understand the gift metaphor for death, and as well somebody near passed away. And again, another parallel, like for me, the way I see it is, it could be a gift, but the way I put it is that their death will mean something. Like they won't die for nothing. They won't die for. I want to make like that death. I want it to be like, no, like this happened, and we're gonna make sure it happened for the best reason possible because it's already happened. You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's, you know, yeah. I mean, death is death. You know, because it's everything that happens outside of us has absolutely no meaning. There's zero meaning to anything that is outside of our body. It's not until you know, we perceive it through one of our senses and we put a label on it that creates a meaning. And that's, you know, so taking death for the example, you can view it, you can put the label on it as it's a curse. It happened to me. Or you can put the label on it as it's a gift that happened for me. There's a lesson here. My dad is a teacher. My dad taught me the ways in which not to live.
Yeah.
He taught me what alcoholism will do. But he also taught me drive and ambition due to the lack of his own drive and ambition.
So I want to ask this question to both of you, because obviously you guys have experienced something similar. Was it obviously in your case, Scott, like you had a few pivotal moments, right? But it wasn't an instantaneous change.
No.
Right. And so what I want to ask both of you is, what was it like there's obviously a collection or a build up to this particular point, but there also is a catalyst or a point in time where all those collective things add up and they make sense, and then you're able to affect change. So I'll pose a question to you, Scott and Elvin. What was that point?
For me, it was a process. I don't think it was one specific point. I think you're right. It's a collective. But I think there comes a time in a person's life when, everything sucks and life sucks and everything's stupid and everybody else is stupid. Like, for me, there came a time in my life where I was like, man, this isn't serving me at all. All I'm doing is perpetuating a way of being that it's not who I'm supposed to be. It's not who I know I can be. And not to mention, I watched the end of that mentality play out to the bloody end. And one of the things that that I've shared countless times and how I live now is, when somebody dies, I share this with vets all the time because, our veteran population, we cannot let go of those that have died before us, be it combat, be it suicide, family, whatever that looks like. And I've told this to them, and that's, don't mourn their loss and sabotage your own life, but celebrate the life that they had and live the life that they would want you to have. I guarantee you, none of those guys that have died before us, none of them is in heaven or Valhalla or great, whatever your viewpoint is. They're not in their final destination looking back going, yeah, you better sabotage your life because I died for you. I died so you can live. Hell no. No, it's I died so you can live the life that you're supposed to live. People, we go to war, we fight for our freedom, and that comes at a cost of blood. So our guys die. Painful as it is. They died on a battlefield so we can come back and live the free life that we're supposed to be able to live back here in the States. The last thing those people want, the last thing our brothers and sisters in arms want, is to see us kill ourselves, is to see us drink ourselves to death, is to see us stick a needle in our arm or nose candy up our nostrils. They want to see us thrive. That's why they sacrificed.
I think again, I think it's difficult, like easier said than done, because like the way I relate it, and maybe other people feel like that is what people struggle with is the guilt. If I I'm having such a fun time, this person should have been having a fun time with me, or I should have been there. Like you put yourself in a situation where this circumstance, I should have, I don't know, flown left instead of right, and everything would have been different. So, I mean, again, that is great advice, and it's just something that I'm like, it's easier said than done, but it takes that constant reminder, I think, daily to get past some of those days.
And the thing is, like, when I was in Iraq in 2003, I mean, dude, we were running around in high back Humvees, cloth high back Humvees. Rounds, 7.62 rounds could have shredded the back of those Humvees.
Yeah, they had the aluminum tins, man. I remember that.
Doors,
IEDs, they didn't even know what they were. Oh
the
man.
doors were cloth.
Yeah.
Like they were vinyl or whatever the hell they were. And
Yeah.
like, dude, while I'm over there for an initial invasion, my wife's cousin back here dies because of a blood clot in her leg. When it's your time, it's your time. And that sounds very heartless, and I don't mean it to be heartless. I mean, I've got, a bracelet on my arm too. Caught a 7.62 round in the back of the neck. Died on the bird on the way to Balad. And so I'm not saying it in a heartless way, but the fact of the matter is, when it's our time to go, I don't care what the movies say and what is that, Final Destination or whatever, you are not cheating death. That doesn't mean don't take care of yourself. That doesn't mean, sit there and jump off a bridge and see if you live.
So when you're coaching and you're helping somebody with their mindset and trying to traverse the rigors of their life, how do you bring them from, or what's the process of bringing them from that negative state, that destructive state, and helping them see the path of personal growth and development and the beauty in that?
Yeah. So the process is it's as long or as short as that person wants it to be, right? And as I was talking about, what we were just talking about a minute ago, and where I speak very passionately about that, and I'm very direct in how I say things. That's not the approach that I take in the coaching conversations, because I don't believe in the suck it up mentality. And so if that person is ready to be taking massive action, cool, let's take massive action. If not, then we take it one small step at a time. And that's honestly the way I prefer, because just like small hinges swing big doors, small steps create big results, right? And so, a lot of that is, are you trying to determine what your purpose is or your identity? Are you simply just wanting to be more at peace internally? What does that look like for you? Now, in the Alpha Lima Charlie member platform, that is a pretty automated system where when people sign up, when vets sign up, each week they get another coaching video sent to their member site, and they have handouts that they can print off so they can engage with the content rather than just mindlessly watching some video. I mean, we've all been through death by PowerPoint in the military. So this is more, engaging with the content. There's action steps that they need to take every week, because it's the action steps that they take that's actually going to help them move forward. Maybe that's moving forward and finding their purpose or identity. Maybe that's just moving forward and releasing things from the past. Us vets, we have a hard time forgiving things at times, and I've heard countless times vets say, God forgives, I don't. Well, then what you're saying is, I refuse to take control of my life back, right? So maybe that's the focus, but the coaching videos are broad enough that they're going to be able to cover any of these challenges that vets are facing, but they're also intricate enough that vets can use these sessions to really work on their specific challenge.
So through the Alpha Lima Charlie membership platform, I understand there's a curriculum, right? And then there's also tangible, I'll call it homework, but basically work that you have to interact with, as you said. Is there an accountability piece too? Are they sort of going through the program, they sign up and then they're left alone, or is there interaction between the veteran and you, or the veteran and somebody of your team throughout the process?
Yeah, so when people sign up, they also have the option of joining another Facebook group.
Okay.
That is specific to members of the Alpha Lima Charlie member portal. And in there, I also I add more content, Mindset Mondays, And, you know, in that group, they can create accountability there. This is really, it's a self-paced program. You know, sometimes people want to mull over one video for a couple weeks before moving on to the next one, and that's fine. And you know, one of the accountability pieces that I have in place is, and it's built into the system, is in every session, after the first session, at the beginning, I'm asking if they completed the action steps from the following week. If they didn't, they need to stop the video, go back and do the action steps. But again, it's self-paced, and it's kind of an honor system where if you're not doing the action steps, maybe you're getting something out of it, but it's the actions that is going to help you move forward. It's just like, you know, we train, you know, we fight the way we train. If we train lackadaisical, we're not going to put up a good fight. If we're training with passion, with heat, with aggression, with violence, the way that we're supposed to, and the way we're supposed to take it to the enemy, we're going to put up a good fight. Well, it's the same thing with these action steps. If you half-ass these action steps, you'll get half-ass results.
You got any you got any like a story on like somebody, a memorable client that, you know, you've seen a beautiful transformation that you could share?
So actually, I'll pull up the I had a testimonial. A guy was only in it for 2 weeks. This guy was working on his PhD. He works for NASA. And he's an Air Force vet, and he wrote a testimonial just after a couple of weeks. Now this guy, you know, he has since moved on, and I mean, when you're working on your PhD and working for NASA, I'm not quite sure how much time you have left, so I get it. But let me see if I can find that real quick. Here we go. No, maybe.
Well, in the meantime, I liked what you said, because I always equate your action as your currency to success, right? Like that's the ticket to success, right? That's the step that you need, which is the action step. But I think the other thing that I got from what you were saying was, when you go into this this other Facebook group that you have, once you subscribe to that particular portal, you then have not just one person, i.e. you now have the community to interact with. So you don't just have one mentor. You don't just have one point of failure, right? If they can't get in contact with you, they're screwed, right? No, they have a Facebook group that other people that are going through this process are also in, that they can bounce ideas off of. They can network, they can improve at an exponential rate, so long as they're willing to put forth the effort.
Yeah. You know, and you know, that brings me to something else that I'm currently working on right now. Still under the Uplifting Charlie umbrella, is I've partnered with AMVETS, and they have their HEAL program, and HEAL stands for Healthcare, Education, Advocacy, and Legislature. So they do a lot, anywhere from, you know, healthcare for vets all the way up to Capitol Hill. And so I've been fortunate enough to develop a relationship with Sherman Gillums, who's their Chief Advocacy Officer, and they sponsored, through their HEAL program, they sponsored 10 vets, him and also Sharissa Jackson, who's their Chief Medical Executive. They sponsored 10 vets through their HEAL program, which was funded by H-Wave. And so I have 10 vets going through, and because they had such a response, I matched that by sponsoring myself another 10 vets. So we have 20 vets going through 3 months of coaching for free. And I'm adding to that by, this group is actually going through, each week they have weekly group coaching calls, where I'm working with all of them. And let's say, like, so the way the group coaching works is, Scott, let's say me and you are I'm coaching you on, I don't know, marital challenges. And Elvin, maybe you're dealing with something very similar. But maybe you're just not opened up enough to talk about it yet. So, but the stuff that I'm working with Scott on,
Sounds like me.
Elvin, you're now getting some breakthroughs because I've been able to give, just by virtue of our conversation, you've taken some things away for yourself as well.
Gotcha.
So I'm doing that in a group coaching setting with them each week for this 3 months that they're on. And then they also have their own, small breakout, fire teams, if you will, of 4 people for accountability teams. And that way they can hold each other accountable, and so that's something else that I'm working on. But absolutely in the Facebook group, they have the ability of, I see this other person in there and they're going through ALC for something similar. And so I want to connect with this person and maybe just create an accountability partnership with this individual. And right now, I think we're finally starting with the things that are taking place, not only out Lima, Charlie, but a lot of vets are finally saying enough's enough, and people are starting to understand that the VA can only do so much, the government can only do so much, but what can I do for myself? At the same time, vets are also finally starting to see that we've got to stop this toxicity, this toxicity in our veteran community, and the people that are trolling each other, right? And so by having an accountability partner, we're no longer trolling each other, and just the 2 of us doing that, that's going to start shifting the narrative of what our community actually looks like, from toxicity to positivity. And you're absolutely right, Scott. It's yeah, they can't get on the phone with me or whatever, they're not up shit's creek, because now they have that community, they have that tribe of people that they can connect with. And that, and I've said it from the very beginning, that it's going to take a village. My whole, one of my big missions is to shift that narrative of the veteran population. And that's, we have to reduce the toxicity and negativity, stop the 22, by developing a level of positivity in the veteran community, rather than I'm wearing asshole as a badge of honor on my chest. Right?
What do you think the first step is to that? Oh, sorry.
You're good. Let me just hit on this real quick, because this is a good segue into your Vets Mentoring Vets page, which we haven't really talked about. But external to ALC, you have this Vets Mentoring Vets page with 12,000 now members, which is incredible. Yeah. And if you're already on this page, if you're listening, what goes on this page, because I know what goes on this page because I monitor it and I watch it, and I drop comments here and there when I see something that I think I have something of value to add. And it's a community of veterans that are solely there to uplift and support other veterans through a myriad of issues. I mean, you'll see things from suicide, you'll see things from financial hardships, you name it, it's on there. And these aren't like dead posts, quote unquote. Like, you're getting hundreds of comments, you're getting tons and tons of feedback, and I'm sure it's a lot to deal with as somebody who's trying to engage with it, but it's not like you're putting up a post and then it's just one like, no comments. I mean, you're getting engagement. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Elvin.
No, that was really good. I was just interested on what he said, from the negative to the positive. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. What is the first step? Like,
the first step in moving
from negativity to positivity. Like, what's the first thing? Obviously, everybody's different, but is there like a general first step that you would like advise someone to actually, to do? Like
Ownership.
A starting point.
Ownership. How can I own everything happening in my life? How can I take responsibility for every piece of my life, for every aspect that is my life? When you start to take responsibility, things start to shift. When you start to say, yep, I have a hand in that. How can I change that? Moving from judgment to curiosity is a part of that. If you think about those 2 things, judgment and curiosity. When you judge something, You are not curious about it at all. You don't want to know about it. But when you're curious about something, you're genuinely curious about something, you want to know more about that thing. Therefore, you're not judging it. So if I can get curious about how I can shift my life, if I can get curious about how I can enjoy my life, if I can get curious about how I can right some of these wrongs in my life. And two phrases. How many times do you hear people say, I don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. It's lots. Yeah. But how many people do you hear say, I wonder? You don't. Not that often. When you say, I don't, you are literally telling your brain, or when you say, I don't know, you're literally telling your brain, I have no desire of finding the answer to this.
Mhm.
When you say, I wonder, you are literally telling your brain, I want to find an answer to this.
It's a paradigm shift.
Right. We have got to stop looking at things so judgmentally. And that includes when we get out, the civilians that we meet. They don't know anything about the military lifestyle, but yet we judge them for that. Why? Of course they don't know. They didn't walk in those boots. Of course they may not have the same standards. Doesn't mean that all civilians have very low standards. There are civilians that have much higher standards than the military does. Yet we put them in a box. We judge them. So if we can take ownership for ourselves, if we can start to be more curious about everything in life, get in touch with our inner kid. When we were kids, all kids are just naturally curious about everything. How many of us have been asked 22 questions by our kids in one sitting? I know I have.
That's it.
Well, in the first seconds. But like, we lose that. And because it doesn't fit in our box, we
I
judge.
could agree a little bit for sure. It's cool when you say things like, "Wow, I kind of think like that," because like us, we all got our little, how we live life. And for me, I always said I'll take care of little me. Little me might have had a little rough. I always said when I grow up, I'm not burying that person. I want that little kid to have exactly what he always wanted. And
Mhm.
so, and when I talk to people, I actually try to talk to their inner kid. Like that's who I'm trying to talk to. And, that can create some good and bad things because I think sometimes people bury that person. But anytime you ever have a really good, fun conversation with somebody, it's usually because you're talking to like that inner kid part. So that's a really good thing to point out there.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to get in touch with our kid. And when that does bring up negative things, that's because maybe that has to deal with baggage that they're carrying from their childhood. I mean, there's a lot of people that went through very negative things when they were kids and are still holding on to that. They have not released that yet. Some much worse than others. I'll never be able to understand because I've never been through anybody else's skin except my own.
Well, I think allowing yourself to be vulnerable, which is sort of the core issue, right, is probably the most, or one of the most important things that you can do is open yourself up. And that's what kids do, right? They're vulnerable, right? They don't have all the guards and the shielding that's up. They don't have the armor on yet, right? Like that's sort of layered on as you gain experience in life. But the superpower is to be able to shed the armor, give yourself somebody who they can relate to, and that's exposing yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a prime example of that. That when it comes to vulnerability, us as men and a lot of women too, and they're definitely included in this, but you see this a whole lot more in men. And then you add the military training to it, and it's very much ingrained and beaten into our head that vulnerability is a weakness. Now, if you're in combat, if you're a cop on the beat, yeah, vulnerability gets you killed. But when you're at home with your loved ones, when you're talking on a phone with a veteran buddy of yours, vulnerability is the purest form of strength. And a lot of us, I know it was the case for me. Whenever I cried as a kid, it was always shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. I remember that. And that became my programming, where I'm not going to cry in front of anybody because there's consequences to that. That was my thinking. I wouldn't even cry in front of my wife. I'm grateful that I've been able to shift that, because like yesterday, so I had a major dad fail yesterday. So I was at lunch with a buddy of mine, and when me and him get together, we talk like schoolgirls. We don't shut up. And it dawned on me that it was like 15 till 4, and my kid was getting off the bus, and I'm still clear across town, and he's 8 years old, doesn't have a key. He's going to be stuck outside by himself. So I beat feet home, and I pull into the driveway, and there he is in the front yard. And he had that look on his face like, dude, where the hell you been? And I parked the truck. I shut the truck off. When I opened the door, I seen him come around the backside of the truck, and he comes up to me, no tears whatsoever. But as soon as he came up to me and he gave me a hug, he fell apart. He was scared out of his mind. Had that been me as a kid, the hell are you crying about? My son has to know that it's okay, that when he's scared, it's okay to show it. When he's breaking down, it's okay to break down. Now, granted, if he's crying because I said he can't have fruit roll-ups for breakfast, that's a different story. But yesterday, it was absolutely okay for him to break down. And that's the shift that we need to create. We have to create that in those of us that have already been programmed to think that being vulnerable is a weakness. And that's a challenge for a lot of guys. And honestly, a lot of women too, especially the women that have been through the military, because how many women have also been told to suck it up?
Yeah, it might even be more of an issue for women in the military than men, because you're in a male-dominated world. And as an emotional being, as a caretaker, all the different roles that you play as a life enabler, as a mother, you come into a male-dominated culture, and then, I mean, it's completely outside your genetic coding, right? To be subjected to that type of mindset, because it's not inherent to a woman's nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Just to back up a little bit, I found that that testimonial.
Oh, awesome.
To give you that example. So it's kind of a lengthy one, so bear with me. Not necessarily a book, but maybe a chapter. So I'm Chris from Melbourne, Florida, and the reason I joined Alpha Lima Charlie was to help get out of this rut I'd fallen into. No motivation to do anything, from work to self-care. It started with the death of my dad and then a divorce shortly after. So far, the results I've gotten have been unbelievable, and I mean that literally. I wouldn't have believed a few conversations and some videos would do anything. I've been paying for therapy for years, and it's left me very much aware of what I'm going through and even why, but with no tools to move forward. That's what Alpha Lima Charlie is for me, a toolbox. And I'm not just discussing my problems for 75 an hour, being what he's paying the therapist, not me. I'm learning, I want to make that clear. I'm learning to use these tools to fix my problems. I joined Vets Mentoring Vets and never considered taking it further. I liked helping people with issues, sharing stories, and just being around a group I understood. When I heard about Alpha Lima Charlie, I didn't think it would be for me. I've seen the best therapist in town. I've tried every medication. What could a life coach do for me? I posted in the group about my issue, just looking for others to give some advice and commiserate with me. And Scott reached out with a DM. We just talked. There was no sales pitch, and I don't think he cared at all about me joining or not. He saw someone struggling with an issue he knew how to help with, so he helped. It truly was a conversation that changed my life. I don't hide my feelings from therapists. They just don't get it. How I think, what motivates me, that I can deal with being told that I'm doing something wrong. There's a connection we all have. There's shit we've all been through, and Scott speaks in a language that brings me back to a heart-to-heart with an NCO when I was fresh in uniform. He's been through what I've been through with the same eyes and the same reactions, and it matters. I think if you're even researching why you might join, you've already made the decision. This isn't therapy. There's no diagnosing what's wrong with me. There's just a path forward, a path that will help more than medication or therapy when they just can't hit that spot in your brain, because it's a path created for that identity we all share. I used to wonder about the old guy at the VA, still rocking their Vietnam hats. Why were they so stuck on a brief moment in their life? It's because that moment, whether 4 years or 24 years, changed who we are. It builds an identity that nobody who hasn't sworn that oath can understand. That's what Scott has done with Alpha Lima Charlie. He's leveraged that identity to build a system that works for all of us, from infantry to admin. There's nothing else like it. And I finally feel like myself again because I found a way forward that no therapist would have ever come up with. I was sick of just thinking about all the things I was lacking and needed to do. I needed someone to just tell me what steps to take, and it changed everything.
Wow, it's quite the testimonial.
Toolbox is where it's at, man. And when I heard that made the most sense. And definitely getting out the Marines myself in 2014. That was it. Everybody, had a bunch of advice, or not. I got the awareness part, but guide me, what to do next. And so that toolbox, I think that's the difference. That's the difference between anything else. Is it's not just, oh, this is what's happening, but now what do I do about it? And so it's good to know that that's there, and I'll probably be looking into that. So good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So what I know you're working with AMVETS, and when we had spoke offline, you had told me that that I think it was them, that they're running some sort of data to basically sort of quantify sort of the results that you're getting. Is that correct, or am I off on that?
Yeah. So what we're doing is I've got a survey of 10 questions at the very beginning when they first sign up, and these questions are based around their transition out of the service, how it's affected them, how it's affected their family, if they thought about harming themselves, just getting just a snapshot of where they are currently. There's also in there, I have, it's called the Wheel of Life. And the Wheel of Life is something that life coaches use. It's literally this circle on a piece of paper broken into pie segments. And in this particular case, there's 8 different areas of your life that you're measuring, and you're measuring them on a scale of 1 to 10. One being that it's broken, it needs fixed entirely, I need to work on this area. 10 being it's the best area, or it couldn't get better, kind of thing. And so we take that, and we take the survey questions, and then at the 30-day mark with this particular group, at the 30-day mark, and then again at the 90-day mark, we're having them do a Wheel of Life, and we're asking those questions, and we're asking not the same questions, but we're going to ask similar questions, seeing where, what the measurement is, where they're at in life, what's the progress, right? And that does a couple of things. One, that'll tell me where I'm hitting or missing the mark. And if I'm missing the mark, there's adjustments that I need to make. But what it's also going to show is, okay, so it's showing progress. This is something that, so right now, there's legislation up at Capitol Hill. You guys familiar with the Commander Scott Hannon Act?
No.
So this bill that's being passed is it approves funds for non-traditional therapy methods such as coaching or warrior retreats, that kind of thing. And
Gotcha.
so where the devil's in the details. So what specifically that looks like and what red tape is necessary and or well unnecessary, if you will. But what kind of hoops they're going to have to jump through and that kind of thing to get this funds. We're going to compile this data, create case studies, and say, listen, this is where, regardless of what red tape, this is where the funding needs to go to something like this. This is one of those resources that needs that funding too. Because I come from the school of thought that this is not a free. It's not a free resource to vets, unless, of course, you're sponsored. That's a different story. But even the ones that are sponsored, they have the option of staying on as a paid member after the 3 months is up, or they can stop it if they want to. It's entirely up to them. But I come from the school of thought that, if you have your own skin in the game, you're going to value that a little bit more, right? But at the same time, that's not to say that there's a lot of vets that need this kind of resource that can't afford. It's $47 a month is what it is, just a little bit more than a gym membership. But there's vets that can't afford that will put value into this. And so, if we're able to take this back to Capitol Hill and say, listen, this is where funding needs to go, then we're able to get funding on a much higher level to not only sponsor vets, but also create process improvement, to create events for vets in different locations. I mean, you see these events like Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. You see Grant Cardone's 10X conference. There's never been something like that for vets. Market, I will create that.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because what you're doing, especially with that particular venture, is you're essentially lobbying on behalf of veterans, right? To hopefully, ideally, get this legislation passed so we can start to explore some of these secondary and tertiary mechanisms of improving the veteran community. And I think A, that's noble, and B, it's something that nobody's doing, or very few are doing, right? At least on that macro scale. So I think that's important. And the other thing that I wanted to go back to just briefly is when you had talked about the circle of the 8 different parts of life, you had shown me that. We had a conversation about a week ago, and you had shown me that in a visual, and you did justice to it. But for me, when I saw it, it really, really made sense. So there it is. And let me just, so you can see on the piece of paper that inner circle isn't a complete circle, right? It's sort of concave in some spots, it's convex in others. And the idea is to sort of push the outer boundaries that are concave to make them more convex, so you have a more encompassing circle. So it was a good visual. So thank you for pulling that up. But I just wanted anybody who's watching to see that. And if you're not watching, go to YouTube and check out the podcast on YouTube.
The question is, does a flat tire run smoothly?
No, lots of friction.
So look at your wheel of life and see where you need to improve, so you're not running on a flat tire.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Elvin's got to run. He's got some other engagements to go to. We would love to have you back, and we hope that you're a regular guest, because your insight and knowledge and what you're doing is at the forefront of what we need at the veteran community. So I personally want to thank you for coming on. The last time I spoke to you, I walked around for an hour thinking about some of the things that you were talking about and that we talked about. And even in this one, it's good to hear some of these things again. And it's also good to hear some of these other new concepts that I'm not necessarily familiar with. And, through what you've been saying, you're making me reflect inward even more. And I like to think that I do try to look inward a lot. So thank you for being a guest, but also thank you for making me do that and helping me, continue to look inside. So I really appreciate it.
My honor, brother.
Yeah,
Elvin,
man,
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. No, man, same thing here. The piggyback off what he said. I also want to thank you for your time. Definitely one of those episodes where hopefully everybody's like us, where I think we need that. You need that reflection. It's not all the time jokes and funs and games and entrepreneurship. I think to get better, you need to look at yourself. You need to really fight yourself every day. You know what I mean? And hopefully this and everything you said here and the thing that when you come back that you're going to say in the future, these are the type of things that are going to make an impact. And that excites me to know that hopefully somebody got something out of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, the jokes are all great and everything, but I think we've taken it to an extreme too, where it's that's even part of the toxicity. These memes that are out there and Facebook groups that are out there, like humor serves a purpose absolutely in a therapeutic process, but we're taking that to the extreme where we're now adding to the toxicity with it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too.
Absolutely. And can you also identify where we can find you on social media, your website, all those different avenues?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. First and foremost, the Vets Mentoring Vets Facebook group. Just look up Vets Mentoring Vets, and you'll find it. By all means, it's a must that you answer the questions to become a member. I've had a lot of people just click submit without answering the questions. You won't get in because how do we know you're a vet or not? So make sure you answer those questions. You can also find me, Scott Leeper, on Facebook. Send me a friend request, follow me, whatever. Instagram, I'm less than active on Instagram, but you can find me under _Scott Leeper. And then my Facebook group is, my website is alphalimacharlie.com. And then you can also, if you want to email me, you can email me at scott@scottleeper.com or scott@alphalimacharlie.com. So I think that pretty much covers it.
And for all those who are listening and viewing, we will put all the links in the description so you guys can, find him easier. And seriously, if you're considering moving forward in life and you're in a rut, please, I beg you to check out Scott's page and his platform, even the Vets Mentoring Vets Facebook page. Obviously it's free. But listen, like I'd love to help support veterans in any capacity, and you're really just investing in yourself. So Scott, thank you again.
There's one other thing that I'm gonna add in leaving here. If people are thinking about joining or whatever that looks like, if you continue doing the easy thing, life's gonna continue to be hard. But if you actually start doing the hard thing, life gets easier.
I like that. Well, I could have ended that better myself. Thanks again, Scott. Talk to you soon, bro.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Take it easy.
Like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast brought to you by Dotmilgear.com.